Growing up, I'd hear all about the heyday of the 80s and the Sunset Strip. Long hair, flashy cars, and beautiful women in hideous bright colored clothes. It almost felt like if you had the look, a little bit of chops on your instrument, and played venues like the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Roxy, the Viper Room, the Troubadour, you would have a shot of being the next Van Halen, Rat, Quiet Riot, Motley Crue. What's up? My name's Alex Majewski, also known as Jay Sky, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the transformation from music from the 80s until the current day. So with that being said, let's get into this shit. This is before the internet. Way before the internet, when the point of entry into the music industry was a lot more expensive. In order to make a record, you'd have to go into a recording studio, and this is before people were actually making songs in their bedrooms on laptops. Back when the only way of printing CDs or pressing the vinyl was through distribution. This is before DistroKid. For those of you who don't know about the distribution chain, I'm gonna break it down really quickly for you. Back in the day, you'd have a band who would get discovered by an A&R, who would be the representative, who would scout the talent for the labels. Once a band would get signed, they would get an advance to make the record. At that point, the label or A&R assigned to the project would hook up the band with the best producer in the genre at the time. And once the album was complete and ready, it would be pressed to vinyl, cassette, and finally CDs as of 1982. From there, the CDs were distributed through the distribution deal that would put your record in all major stores like Sam Goody, Tape World, Tower Records, FYE. Once you make it to this point, you had full exposure and hopefully your album was good enough to make an impact. By the way, these stores were extremely profitable. As you can see in the movie Next Friday at Pinky's record store. I can't get jiggy with this shit. With such little technology and smaller point of entry, it kept the music industry in a net positive, a lucrative business with a lot of different jobs available for up and comers and people in the middle to make a living or at least get by. So think about that for a second and let me know in the comments if there's any pieces of information or fun facts that I'm leaving out, because to be honest, there's just way too much to cover in this one video. I've talked about things in past videos and scattered throughout that just kind of covers the bigger picture of what I'm talking about on this channel. So is the music industry whack, terrible, fucked over, dude? Well, not exactly. There are actually some really cool things happening in the alternative music scene right now that I'm gonna touch on later in this video. Following the 80s, we had the 90s. It was full of hip hop, grunge, even metal bands like Metallica and Slayer. I remember watching Behind the Music and the making of the video on MTV in the early 2000s. I work as a sound mixer and a producer for music videos. And boy oh boy have things changed. These artists had sets that legitimately cost a couple $100,000, and it was a really special time for music visually and sonically with the sound of the productions. With more money, bands and producers would spend countless hours chasing tones, swapping amps, and creating something that would be more than just a track. It wasn't like a rat race. Bands had different imprints and niches that made them unique to their peers. I'm not saying there aren't big budgeted major artists like Taylor Swift, Billie Eilish, Drake, but in the grand scheme of things, most artists or bands are getting small distribution or publishing deals. This gets them in your face on Spotify, and it's just a big way of being discovered nowadays, and it is extremely important. You no longer need a big Neve console. You have VSTs and modern technologies making what we call plugins like Waves, FabFilter, Universal Audio. So instead of having to have all these big racks and gear to fill up a huge studio that you have to pay rent for, you can now fit it in your computer or your hard drive. It's a huge game changer, and it's much more cost effective. Same thing with guitar amplifier cabinets and amps and heads. They were replaced with things like Guitar Rig or Neural DSP, the Kemper Line 6 Helix. The band that I tour with actually all run off of a Neural DSP. On the first tour, we all had amps, 2 guitars with us for alternate tunings, things like that. Now we're currently running off of 1 Neural DSP. Everything's automated. It's eliminated a lot of the pedals that we would bring. We don't need a trailer or a really big van to haul extra gear. It's a lot more cost effective. It makes things really easy, and we could have in-ear mixes specifically for every person in the band, and it's pretty next level. It's super influential. So these technological advances was such a game changer and a dream come true to myself and so many producers and musicians around the world. So what happened? Did what seemed like a dream come true actually make it harder for musicians and producers to make a full-time living? Who remembers Napster, Kazaa, LimeWire? Blink once if you do remember. Do not admit it. Back when CDs was the main format that music would be sold on, it was much cheaper to produce a CD than to manufacture vinyls or cassettes. So the margins became huge and the labels were making a ton of money, which trickled down all across the music industry. You would spend between 10 and upwards of 20 bucks on a CD just to gain full-time access to possibly just a single. You would get home, you would listen to the record, and you were lucky if there were one or two really good songs on the CD. So to put things into perspective, Spotify pays about 4,000 bucks for 1 million streams. And when a label would sell a CD, say 15 bucks, and it would go platinum and they'd sell 1 million copies, they would profit about $15 million before expenses, which is just crazy to think of. The amount of money that people were missing out as soon as kind of CDs got cut out of the equation just changed everything. And more times than not, you would go home and there'd be like one or two good songs on the whole CD, and the rest was like, meh. There's a few exceptions. I have a fucking bunch of CDs that I can mention that is just fucking dope from top to bottom. CDs were really easily replicated. You could burn them for bootlegging, and in many ways, that was a major win for upcoming rappers in the mixtape era. First and foremost, people started illegally downloading music at rapid speeds, and this would forever alter the music industry, making it a lot less valuable. But as you could see, that was a huge hit to the music industry and the whole food chain. Producers, songwriters, musicians, engineers, everybody. I have friends that work as assistants at labels today, and they make shit pay, and even to get those jobs are far and in between. You have to know the right people and have the right connections. But here's the question, are we doomed? Dun dun dun. Let me know in the comments if you think we're fucked, for real. Yes. Well, no. But yes. So if you're hard-headed and you wish that things were like they were in 1982, then perhaps you are fucked. But if you're willing to change, learn, keep up with the times and the technology, then there's hope for all of us. Things just look a little different now. Personalities, dancers, comedians, and teeny bopper models are often the focus of publishing deals and labels, as social media like TikTok is not only free publicity, but reaches larger audience than ever before. Brand deals and sponsorships have taken the lead of income-driving activity. The modern MTV is channels like the Punk Rock NBA, No Jumper, Rick Beato as today's VH1 classics. If MTV could lose their mojo to Vice, then anything could happen. But there is hope. In the way I started off this video talking about the heyday of the 1980s on the Sunset Strip, I'm seeing something similar happen with a lot of bands and collectives and groups in the same bars on the Sunset Strip that bands like Motley Crue were playing back in the day, with bands and groups and artists putting on rad events, parties, and showcases. Up-and-comers like the homie Hey Duke You Suck and his gang, Sashi Six, Noah Thomas, and Lil Lotus and their people. Even rad events like Exposure World, creating a great platform for many artists to come together in one place. Although things will never be exactly like they once were before, I feel a lot of things brewing, and I'm excited to see what's coming next. My name's Alex Majewski, also known as J Sky. I appreciate everyone for tuning into this video, showing support. I drop them weekly. Follow me on Instagram, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.